CrazyhermitDM. Yesterday on my Instagram, I said I was going to answer some one-on-one questions, and man, did I get a just plethora of questions. A good 20, if not 30. What are the best tools for a DM to use and best practices for prep, running a game, and etc.? It's very individualized. It just depends on your style and what you like to do. For me, as a storyteller, I like to improvise a lot. I like to have, paper with an outline, one, two, three things, maybe four or five, even depending upon how much role playing I want. But I generally have an outline just because I am comfortable with myself. I know what I am capable of. I know what my players are capable of. And I have actually, for the first time in 13 years playing, I trust every single person that I look at around the table. I kind of know what they're capable of and what to expect, though they still pull curveballs and X factors that still surprise me. And that is why I play the game. And we've discussed that on the podcast. As for tools, in the 15 year out of the 15 years that I've played, there is one site called Donjon, Donjon, and I have used that generator for treasure names. There's also a fantasy name generator before we get too further into the names. I love that for name generation, and that's helped me. I keep a NPC list handy or whatever if I feel they're going to run into a lot of NPCs. But that dungeon that has a encounter generator, a monster list, a spell list, treasure generator. It's like an all-in-one convenient store stop for generators for D&D players. And there's other like there's one for fifth edition, there's one for fourth edition, there's a science fiction tab, there's all sorts of things there. I highly recommend them. Check it out. What is the second question? How would you define your personal style? My personal style is I am a rule of cool DM. I am a storyteller, first and foremost. If the players had fun and I had fun, then that means the world to me. There's simply nothing feeling better than sitting 3 to 4 hours, depending upon how long we play. And if at the end of the night everyone's having fun, everyone's forgotten about how crappy the world is some days or that week or how hard work was that day, then I've done my goal as a DM. Into paid DMing. I don't know if I wish I could. That would be just an amazing, amazing thing to happen. Whether I could do it or not, I'm gonna try. Especially with the podcast and the YouTube and me kind of branching out right now. That'd be living a dream. But I am a first responder. That is my daytime job, and I do enjoy that. Let's see. Minimalist world building. I actually had to look this one up, so I've never heard it like put that way. Uh, so basically, minimalist world building is starting small, basically like uh, on a level. If you're level one, two, three, or whatever, starting out at the very beginning, you just start in a village. And if it's a brand new campaign setting, working it out from there, depending upon what the players kind of do. Yeah, that is if you're building a setting or you're a newer GM or a DM, that is the perfect thing that you can do. That is what you should do is just focus on what's basically right there at hand and work out from there. It's just like drawing or writing. One sentence at a time, one line at a time. You can't draw a picture all at once. Each individual session might only be a couple of lines or, a couple of sentences, depending upon what metaphor you want to use there. But yes, I highly recommend minimalist world building or starting out small and working big. The other thing you can do, and if you can pull this off with your players, it's amazing, is the iceberg. I believe it's a theory or basically or metaphor is basically you see an iceberg in the middle of the ocean and you only see that little part of it basically peeping above the thing. And if you have your players, and that's all that shows. Let me clarify that. That's all that shows to the players is that little part above the water. But all these players know that there's a giant section underneath the water. But if you're doing your proper DM job, or I guess not proper, but if you're doing a good job DMing, then the rest of that ice has nothing in it. It's just that little cap. But you're making the players believe that that iceberg is, you know, gigantic. It's taking up half the ocean because you have such a deep and rich world. And maybe you do. If you do, even better. But if you're a new GM, just it's all about the sense of illusion that you know what you're doing. The other good thing that you can do is just give them the sense of illusion that you already knew what they were going to do. If you were playing D&D, what tabletop RPG would you be playing or running? Preferably Call of Cthulhu. I really love Call of Cthulhu. It's a simple game system. I haven't delved into the magic too much. I've run two or three one shots with it. I really want to start running live plays with it once I get that computer system run up. But definitely Call of Cthulhu 7th edition. That's the only one I've played. I've looked at other stuff from the previous editions of that. It all looks good. Um, there's a couple others. I mean, I do want to try out Koval's new one that's coming out. That's earned an insane amount of money on his Kickstarter. It's just crazy. Um, what indie tabletop RPG are you looking forward to playing next? That is a good question. There are a lot out there, and I'm not even quite sure all the gaming scene because we are still in a renaissance as far as I'm concerned, despite what the latest the author that's wrote the Slaying the Dragon said tabletop RPGs are going dead or the golden age is done. No, I don't believe that. It's shifting. It's progressing. It's just, not what it was. All right, next question. Uh, tabletop design theory and practice. That's a good question. That's actually a pretty deep question. A lot deeper than I was expecting off this. I'd love to see how others work. You know, I'm always delving into seeing how other tabletop systems work, seeing if I could kind of cherry pick that little bit of uh, design that I might like out of their thing. All right, this one was a little aggressive, and I did censor it just because it's a video. All right, next question. Why is it apparently the epitome of effing heresy to play a role-playing game in a different way than intended by the developers? That anger isn't directed at me in particular, just the thought of whoever prompted this question, which, speaking of, is asked legitimately, not rhetorically. I don't have a good answer to this one, unfortunately. My personal opinion is people just are a lot of it's you or me rather than you and me, which is that's the type of DM I am. I am a you and me DM. I'm the person I want to tell a story with you. Um, if you're, if you're not doing exactly how the developers want something to go, then so be it. If you want to play a game, rules as written, so be it. That's your play style. If that makes you happy, and so just go and play it that way. I don't play that way personally, but I'm not going to put you down for the way you play. As long as you don't put me down for the way I play, then I might get a little defensive, but I'm still going to try and be as respectful as possible. Um, Next question. How do you come up and develop your NPC characters? I've tried all sorts of different ways over the 15 years I've played. Um, Sometimes I blatantly rip them off of a TV show or a movie that I really loved. Uh, I've done so many. The most recent one that I've talked about on the podcast, Gilvigel Hickelsprockets. He was a gnome tinker artificer. During COVID, I was rewatching the TV show Frasier, which is a very dated program, unfortunately, or has become dated, at least in my opinion. Don't come at me. There's a character on that called Gil, and he has this very proper accent, and he's very proper, and I just like it. Just the wheels in my head started turning. It's like he'd be funny as a gnome, and then I started looking up like names and kind of converting it from there, and it went from Gil to Gilvickle, and I looked up names that funny last names of gnomes, because in my setting I like making absurd names for gnomes. Pickle Sprockets, Toddletink. Before we go to the next question, but there's all sorts of different ways. The other one was there's another character called Minos, literally blank Minotaur thing. I just kept rolling so high on knowledge things that I just made that he's a big history nerd, even though he was a gigolo. He's a gigolo with a heart of gold that likes to read, and everybody fell in love with him. Which player character has surprised you the most with their development? That one is actually pretty hard. I don't know if which has surprised me the most. They've all kind of surprised me in their own ways. I'm not trying to be that, you know, parent that's not picking out their favorite child, because I do love all the characters at my, you know, my table. I love everybody's characters. That surprised me the most of what they've done. I don't have a solid answer for that. I'm sorry. Are there any plans to have guest players or collaborate with other D&D podcasts? The answer is absolutely yes. I'm in talks with numerous people on Instagram as well as a couple other social media sites and asking them if they'd like to come on and interview once I got the proper setup. We're pretty much there as is. And then after that, I'm not quite sure. I know the ultimate goal when I did have my producer come to me and say, "What's the ultimate goal?" The ultimate goals to eventually get to a live play or get that set up. I want a good looking one. That's the thing. I don't want to start out with a very looking like I'm on a Zoom call. But we are working on that. We are working on getting a couple interviews set up, especially now that I have the setup with the microphone, the lights, camera, the screen in the back, uh, and all that fun stuff. There's much more to come. So please stay tuned. Like and subscribe as well. All right, next question. What advice do you have for aspiring dungeon masters who want to start their own campaigns? Are we talking about campaign settings, or are we talking about just their own campaign? If you are talking about your own campaign setting, let's go back to the previous question of minimalist world building. You start out small. You start with a town or a village. Flesh that out a bit. You know, go from there. Start small, and then you build out. You build out to the next town. You build out to this, and you make up some names like, oh, what's off to the east? Then are there some mountains? What are the name of those mountains? Do people mine in those mountains? Is there a monster there that prevents people from going to those mountains, or is there a group of monsters? Or I know in one story that I wrote, there's people have trouble crossing the border through the mountains because there's a very large flock of griffins that like to basically swoop down and attack basically any caravans that kind of go through. Start small, work big. As for starting your own campaign, personally, if you are new to DMing as a whole, or you're very green and you are not comfortable making stuff up on a fly like your campaign setting, just pick up a published book and run it. Run it in that setting, and then if you're getting unsatisfied with the setting, like Faerun, like I did, I eventually branched out. I wanted to make my own setting. Then run that. Are there any upcoming plot twists for your campaign, and what are they? Uh, the person that sent this is not a member of my group, and therefore, yes, there are plenty of plot twists coming. One in the next session or two, depending upon how fast they get to a certain location. I am playing my own homebrewed version of the Descent to Avernus. Um, I don't want to give away too much, honestly. we are playing this weekend, and I'm recording this on a Wednesday. We play on Sunday, and it will probably take a little bit for this to be edited, so I probably won't spoil the twist if I unless I really get this edited. But I have a very big twist coming for that Wondering Emporium section. I don't want to reveal it, and I'm not going to tell you. Sorry. My players watch my channel. No, no spoilers. All right. Next question. Let's see. In ttrpg game, as a game master, what would you say is the most vital items to have on hand? For me personally, would be well, I know the things that I always take is one, my DM screen, my laptop, and my dice. And if and also my dice tray, obviously, because I do have some really sharp sided resin dice that are really nice and custom. Uh, Shout out to your wizards as well as Menstrual Store, who is an affiliate of mine, I will say, and have provided me with wonderful gaming accessories. But those three or four things are usually the things that I need the most. I keep most of my notes digital now. Well, I've progressed from paper and pen over to just pretty much digital notes. That way I can shift between my phone and my laptop and it all stays on a cloud. It's just easier that way, and I don't have to go back and track down notes and all that, or it's like, where did I write that down at and all that, because I'm attention deficit disorder, and I was always scrambling through notes and losing them, and then I'd find them 2 weeks later. With the cloud, not a big deal. What's your go-to house rule for D&D? Ooh, okay. I have a couple. One, the most obvious one is healing potions are a bonus action. I don't believe they should be a full action. I did see a post on Instagram that I'm gonna bring up to my players. I do like to bring up the house rules to players to see how they feel about it. If they're really, really opposed to it, then I don't run it. But there are certain ones I'm kind of a stickler on. One is the potion thing. Two, in my particular homebrew setting, I do not have the language of common. There's no common tongue. There's individual regional things like there's this republic nation called Nimder. Most of the people speak that in the area that you're in. It's like being in Italy, and most of the people in Italy should speak Italian. Or if you're in France, they speak French. Or Germany, they speak German. Uh, but I do believe that puts on a new role for like somebody with higher intelligence because uh, if you how many like plus one, two, three, or four in intelligence you get? Let's say you have a 14 intelligence, so you have a plus two. I do the house rule that you get additional languages, so you get like two different additional languages if you have a 14 and intelligence because I believe that makes the intelligence stat a little bit more valuable. Plus, it adds a new role to the game of being a translator. Imagine being that guy that knows like 8 or 9 languages, and then you're playing a rogue or a bard or or a wizard, an intelligence-based character, and that's kind of your role in the party. Is like, hey, I'm the diplomat. I'm the guy. I'm charismatic and I'm intelligent, and I can translate what the person is saying. And that's a very valuable role when you really think about it. I like that, especially if you're playing, something where you explore a lot. All right, next question. Um, what is the one thing that you really want to see in D&D 6th edition? First and foremost, I don't want it to be strictly a digital edition. If that is the rumors that are going about online, is that Wizards of the Coast or Hasbro or whoever you want to call them now, just because of recent events. I don't want it to be strictly digital. Do I want to play it? I don't know. I want to take a look at it for. Uh, I really love fifth edition. I believe fifth edition captures a lot of the original essence of Dungeons and Dragons and modernizes it its own way. And it's a lot more customizable and dungeon master friendly for obvious reasons. Most memorable moment in a tabletop RPG experience. Ah, memorable out of like recently or the all time, all time, or in the last 15 years as total? There's a lot. There's a lot. I have a lot of stories. Good, bad. Um, Most memorable. Let's do the most absurd. So my brother actually played. My brother and my sister played in a group. Let's see, it was before COVID, so 2018, 19, and my brother was playing this dwarf bard, and I had recently watched that second campaign of Critical Role where they go into like this kind of like multi-dimensional rooms and all that, and I blatantly ripped it off. They didn't watch it, but yeah, so they go through these like different like dimensional areas, and I even took the dragon or whatever at the end of that. It was this starved blue dragon that was supposed to be a watchdog, but he ended up being uh he's like chained or something like that, I think in Critical Role. He I'm not quite sure where they had him chained up, other than obviously he's a dragon, but well, it doesn't matter. So my group gets the dragon actually out of this extra dimensional area, and then he comes out with him, and then starts chasing like the dwarf bard, who's been this coward and this like not well, for lack of a better word, idiot at most times, but that's the way he was played. Uh, Sorry to my brother, you were not an idiot. Your character was, but he tries to sacrifice himself, gets the dragon's attention, throws a dagger at the dragon's eye, hits the dragon. This starved, like malnourished dragon that's been in there for God knows how long starts chasing after him. And this is just an insane moment for the other two or three that are there to escape, and they do. And this dragon starts chasing him, and I go, "All right, so we're going to do this thing from fourth edition called the skill challenge." And I'm going to warn you, you are basically trying to outrun a starved dragon through the woods. Every check's going to be hard, if not very hard. It could be even be like impossible, like a 25 to 30 if you go really absurd with it. If you try and do what you should, it's still going to be a hard check because you're running through the woods from this thing. My brother goes through, he should have just went to the casino that night because he rolls his luckiest amount of string of rolls. Nothing, and I swear nothing below a 20. This dragon's chasing him through the woods, crashing through all the different, trees and all that. This big dramatic scene. My brother throws a bag of tricks towards the end of it, rolls, gets this large cat. I think it was a lion or a cheetah and all that. Quickly, because that thing is friendly towards him, he gets on the back of it and runs off on this cat, and then just takes off through the woods. And this is about a 20-minute like role playing like skill challenge scene, and just by the end of it, he escapes. He gets away from the dragon. And I just sit there for about a solid like 10, 20 seconds, and it's like, what just happened? And it's those type of stories that make me love Dungeons and Dragons. All right, next question. Uh, I've seen from your pictures online that you have Dungeons and Dragons tattoos. What are they, or how many do you have? I have several. I am actually getting a sleeve done on my arm. You can see. I can't really show it on camera, unfortunately. You'd have to kind of look up pictures through Instagram, but I do have a mind flare sucking a dude's brain. The Tomb of Horrors. Most recent one was a uh, potion of healing, and then I got a black dragon and a beholder and a mimic dice, and then I'm not going to take off my hoodie. Have the D&D ampersand right there on my arm. I'm going to probably I'm debating whether I want to do this section because it's really tender. I don't want to hurt. But I think I can handle it or whatever with some of the stuff they have. And then I'm going to fill in between with a grid pattern to kind of represent grid on top of a table. Uh, that is it for all the questions, everybody. I just kind of want to thank you for like sending all these different questions to me. Thank everybody for supporting my channel. Check out the YouTube channel, check out Spotify, support the podcast. Thank you so much for watching. I get like feedback and just actually makes me feel good about myself that I'm actually putting stuff out that people enjoy. Uh, Thank you for joining me. Have a good one.